Welcome everybody to Resume Writing 101 for high school and college students. This program is with Lauren Rosenkranz. She's an experienced college counselor who specializes in working with students and recent graduates. She's taught workshops on career exploration, networking, resume writing, and interview skills. She is going to be with us again in 1 month, same time on a Monday at 7 p.m. on March 8th with the final of this 3-part workshop series, Successful Interviewing for High School and College Students. This program is co-sponsored by the Greenwich Alliance for Education. The Greenwich Alliance expands educational opportunities for Greenwich Public School students and graduates by funding innovative programming championed by inspired teachers. AVID Success, the newest initiative of the Greenwich Alliance for Education, is extending professional support to AVID students by partnering in this presentation of this workshop. So with that, I will turn it over to Lauren.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and certainly thank you to the Greenwich Library and the Greenwich Alliance for hosting these job skills workshops. It's great to be back again. The last time we met in January, we focused on the importance of networking and using LinkedIn in your job search. And today we are going to focus our attention on resume and cover letter writing. So I will share my screen. I think, Michelle, it's not giving me the capability to share screen.
Sorry, I just made you the host.
Okay, super. Thank you so much. Okay, so if at any time you're having trouble hearing me or seeing the presentation, I welcome you to unmute yourself and let me know. I will be taking questions. I'll stop every few slides or so and take questions either in the chat or again, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question or make a comment along the way. And with that, I will get started. So as I said, today we're going to focus on resume and cover letter writing. And, you know, it's important that you know that producing a good resume and a well-written cover letter is a basic requirement for a successful job search. These documents play a critical role in helping employers understand who you are, what motivates you, and what you have to offer as a potential employee. And I always think it's helpful to get started by talking about personal branding. So before you even get started on your resume and cover letter, it's important to figure out what your personal brand is. So when we think of a company, certainly if we think of Nike or Apple, we think of them and their reputation when you hear their name. With Nike, maybe you think of their slogan as well, like just do it. And a personal brand in many ways is very similar to a corporate brand. It's who you are, what you stand for, and your values. And so just as a company's brand helps to communicate its value to its customers and it helps the company stand out from its competition, a personal brand does the same for individuals. It can help you communicate your unique identity and your value to potential employers. So what I suggest is that individuals think about who they are and what they want. They think about their accomplishments, their skills, what you're passionate about, what are your core strengths, and of course, what are your goals? And then once you identify these traits about yourself, and if you have trouble doing that, some people are confused about what they can offer and what their top skills are, you're always welcome to ask a friend or a relative to describe your best qualities and your greatest achievements and see what they say. Another option, of course, is to take a self-assessment. There are many free ones online, or many college career centers offer self-assessments as well, which can really help you hone in on your interests, your skills, and your values. But once you have that figured out, who you are and what you want, it's important to then focus on who's your target audience. What type of people, companies, or organizations are you targeting? What are their characteristics? And then in more depth, thinking about what problems do they need solved? How can you help them? What are hiring managers looking for in a candidate? And what are the key words and skills that they list in their job postings? And just as a company needs marketing materials, you'll need various items to market yourself to recruiters. So, as well as networking contacts or grad school admissions committees. And each of these items, whether it be your cover letter, your resume, your outgoing voicemail message, your online profiles, all of these items help to reinforce the brand you want to present. And I recommend that you be professional and consistent across each medium. So some things to think about and keep in mind as you get started on your resume. You're going to want to keep your resume to, well, first, let me start by saying that a resume is a tailored document that highlights your skills, your education, your goals, and your experience. And it's a summary of these qualifications that you can use in your job search, your internship search, if you're applying for a scholarship or other opportunity. And it's helpful if you keep your resume to one page, because this workshop is targeting those that are in high school and college or recent grads. At this point in your career journey, I would really recommend keeping your resume to one page, because you'll find that employers or hiring managers often spend less than 30 seconds looking at each resume. So you want yours to be easy to read, and you want it to stand out. So I'm going to help you to do that in today's presentation. When you do write your resume, you're going to want to avoid personal pronouns like she or he, you, I. You're going to start all phrases or bullet point statements with action verbs, and we'll get into more depth about that. But the examples would be created or analyzed, coordinated. And throughout your resume, I know sometimes creative resumes certainly might use multiple fonts. I would say for most professional looking resumes, you want to choose a common font throughout. And you have a number of them to choose from. You don't have to, you can be a little more creative with your font, but the ones that I recommend generally are Garamond, Times New Roman, Calibri. And you want your font size to be one where, I know I'm asking a lot to have you fit it on one page, but you don't want to make it too small so that the recruiter's having trouble seeing the words on the page. So I'd stick to a 10 or a 12 point font. You also want to make sure you have equal margins around the page. So a 1/2 inch would be the minimum to about a 1 inch maximum. You're going to use a clean and organized layout with bullet points so that these recruiters can quickly review your resume. And often they're just looking top to bottom in, as I said, less than 30 seconds. Your resume is a reflection of you and the professional that you either are striving to be, or at any point in your career. You want to make sure that your resume and cover letter both are free of any spelling or grammatical errors. So as you're looking to get started on your resume, if you're applying for a particular position, you're going to want to do some research. So you can go to the company website, you can follow the company on social media. You want to research the company on LinkedIn, of course. You research the company and the position that you're applying for. And once you do see a job posting, you're going to review that job description over and over again as you're writing your resume, so that you're making sure that you're including all of the keywords and skills that they mention in their resume. You're actually going to mirror those words and use them as they use them, and put them right on your resume if they apply to you. You're going to customize your resume. And, you know, if you learn one thing from this presentation, I'd say that this might be one of the most important, is that you're going to customize your resume for each position that you apply for. So you might have a resume that you like a template, I don't want to use the word template. I'd say you might want to have the basics down. So and we'll go through content in a moment, but you want to customize your resume for each and every position that you're applying for using these keywords and skills that they've included in the job description. So before we get to sections, does anyone have a question or?
Lauren?
Yes.
I put something in the chat for everybody. I just wanted to let everyone know, when you were talking about the skills assessment testing, that the library has 2 databases that offer these kinds of tests: Job and Career Accelerator and Job Now.
So I will keep going, and then again, of course, I'll stop in a few slides and see if anyone has questions or comments. So important when you start writing your resume that the information on the top is your contact information. So your first section is going to include your name, your address, your cell phone number, your email address. And I would say if you're a college student, you're going to want to use your college or university email address. And if you are not a current college student, you want your email address to be your first and last name. It can include a number or a middle initial, but you want it to be a very basic, easy email address to, for the recruiter to use. And of course, if you've created a LinkedIn profile, you can include your LinkedIn URL right there in the contact block section of your resume. The next section is completely optional, and different recruiters and individuals have different feelings about an objective section. I would say that an objective section or a summary section can be helpful if it's giving a snapshot of who you are as a person and the job that you're seeking, as long as that job that you're seeking matches the job you're applying for. But again, it's really optional. If it's not going to say that much about you as the job seeker, and it's not that, and it's sort of generic, like looking for a financial analyst position, that would be pretty generic. And so unless it's really going to pack a punch and be, include some really important information about you, I would leave it off. The next section, and of course, I'm talking to either high school or college students mainly in this workshop. Your next section is going to be education, and I recommend that education goes next above your experience section if you are a current college student or recent grad or a high school student. That would come next because that's your most recent experience. And if you're applying for an internship, as a freshman or sophomore, you're going to include your high school experience right below the college experience. So it's okay to include high school, I would say up through your sophomore year of college. In your education section, you can emphasize any academic training that's relevant to the job or internship you're applying for. So sometimes students include a relevant coursework section that can go right under education or included in the education section. And that's where you might list a few courses that are most pertinent to the position you are seeking. You can also, in the education section, include any honors or awards that you received. And again, you can do that for high school as well if you're, a freshman or sophomore in college. And you can also include any study abroad experiences that would go right in your education section as well. You can also separate out the honors or awards section. So here's where you would list honor roll if it applies to you. You can include your GPA if it's a 3.0 or above. And here's where you're going to highlight any academic achievements and awards. The next section I want to talk about is the skills section. So interesting because this differs from skills that you would list on a cover letter. So a resume is going to include hard skills. So this would be language skills. So if you are proficient in another language or conversant in another language, you would list that in your skills section. You can also list any computer skills that you have, social media skills that you have. Employers like to see that you have the ability to work with multiple social media platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. So you can list that under the skills section. Skills like organizational skills, communication skills, those are skills that you can talk about in an interview or you can include in your cover letter, and we'll get to that shortly. The next section is your experience section. And your experience section can include paid experience, paid work experience, internship experience. It can also include volunteer positions. If you have a number of volunteer positions, it can be its own section called volunteer experience. But if you want to group it all together, that's completely fine. Certainly employers value the skills that you've learned in volunteer opportunities as much as they value them in paid work opportunities. In your experience section, as well as the other sections on your resume, you're going to want to list everything in reverse chronological order. So that means that the most recent position that you held is going to be first. And then, you're going to then list below that the next most recent position that you've held. You can include an activities or an interest section if you feel like it will be helpful to you for that particular job you're applying for, if it demonstrates your leadership experience, but you can also leave it out. That's another optional section. I often get asked about references, but references would not appear on your resume. It's really helpful to have them listed on a separate piece of paper rather than on your resume directly. So now let's talk about writing the bullet point statement. So under each paid or volunteer internship experience, I'm going to encourage you to include at least 2 to 4 bullet point statements. And so what I mean by that is for you to start each bullet point with an action verb. And this would be an interesting verb that will catch the eye of the reader and showcase your work and your contributions. And for every one of your experiences, I'm going to encourage you not just to state the responsibilities that you had, but include the problem that you faced, So what did you do? And you're going to brainstorm a list of every task you completed at that experience. And then you're going to really think about how you did it. So what skills did you use? And thinking about what was important to the position you held, as well as what could be relevant to the position that you're applying for. So you really want to think about the action that you took, and then you want to think about the results you achieved. So you really want to tell a story here and demonstrate the value that you added to your work. It's often helpful to talk about the end result and what you accomplished. And sometimes numbers, citing numbers, really make your point effectively. So if you were in a supervisory role, you can talk about the number of people you supervised. If you were managing a classroom or you managed a group of campers at a day camp or sleepaway camp, you can cite the number of children that you were overseeing. If you worked on events, a lot of times students, in clubs or organizations plan and execute events. So you can talk about the size of the event. You can talk about if you were responsible for budgeting, what was the size of the budget that you oversaw. So that's what I mean by citing numbers. Here are some bullet point examples, bullet point statement examples, so that you know what I mean. And each starts with an action verb, and you can also find many, many examples of action verbs either on your College Career Center site or by Googling it, action verbs for resume, and you'll come up with a long list. But here are some examples. Maintain safe, pleasant environment for 3 children ages 2 to 7 years. So that would be perhaps a caregiver or a babysitter. Manage social media accounts, generating an increase in website traffic. Coordinated weekly activities for 60+ children ages 5 to 10 in a safe and caring environment while reinforcing rules and procedures. It gives like a more detailed description of what you did in that. That's probably a camp counselor or a student teacher role. Increase monthly sales by 20% through collaboration with coworkers and supervisors on new marketing campaign to better reach target audience. So you really can get a feel for, by including that 20%, how effective the marketing campaign was at reaching that target audience. Next, provided quality customer service to over 100 patrons daily by accommodating their requests, solving problems, and answering questions. So it's not, sometimes I see on resumes provided customer service or handled customer complaints. So this really gives more detail. So when it comes to writing your bullet point statements, I really encourage you to take the time to think about, what you did, how you did it, and what was the end result. And sometimes I often find it helpful, and it's not like you're going to, copy verbatim word for word, but sometimes I Google resume examples for particular jobs. So if you were a barista or you were a customer service representative, sometimes I might Google, resume example for that job that you previously held, just to generate some ideas and help you brainstorm. Okay, before we move on to cover letter, did anyone have any questions? Okay, so let's talk about the cover letter. Your cover letter is going to be an introduction to your resume, and it allows you the opportunity to demonstrate to an employer your fit and enthusiasm for the role. And I would really encourage all of you, even if a cover letter is not required for a position, sometimes when you submit an application, it'll say, do you have any other supporting documents like a cover letter. That means that a cover letter will work in your favor if you have a well-written, well-organized, thoughtful cover letter. So I would encourage you to write one, and I'll talk you through some of the what you would include in a cover letter, and then you can customize it for each job that you apply for. A well-written cover letter is going to show the employer how your experience and skills connect with the job description. If you help them see that you have the skills and qualities they are seeking, you will be more likely offered an interview. But you really need to articulate the connection to the job description and sell your skills. You really want to answer the question for that hiring manager. Why should they hire you? So the main point of a cover letter is really to help support your resume and tie your experience directly to that job description. You're going to be clear and articulate your qualifications in words that mirror what the employer provided in the job description, and really go ahead and sell your skills. It's an opportunity to really highlight your accomplishments. You're going to be concise with your cover letter. I've seen some that are many paragraphs long. Often, an employer won't read them if they're more than, 3 or 4 paragraphs. So you don't want to lose your reader. You really want to keep them hooked and have them then really delve into your resume to get some more details on your experience and accomplishments. As with the resume, you're going to use proper grammar, and you're going to check for any spelling and punctuation errors. I would encourage you, when you're applying for a job, not to use "to whom it may concern." It's really important to go some extra steps and try to find who the hiring manager is, who the recruiter is, and address the letter to that specific person whenever possible. If you find that the job description, I talk a lot about customizing your cover letter and resume for that particular job description. If you find, for example, that the employer is looking for teamwork, and many students across the board, high school, college, have had opportunities to work as part of a team. So what I would encourage you to do in your cover letter, it might not be possible in your resume, but a cover letter is a great place for you to cite an example of a team experience and talk about that accomplishment, what you did as part of that team. So this is sort of and I had said earlier in the session that I will be sharing the slides. So of course, all attendees will get a copy of these slides, but this is sort of basic formatting for a cover letter. You're going to include your street address, and then the date. And then again, you're going to try to direct your cover letter, your inquiry, to a specific person. And if you don't have their title, that's okay, but certainly include their name, their company, and that company's street address. And then I usually encourage students to err on the side of being formal. So I would not use a person's first name. That might be considered a little too familiar. So I would say either dear Mr., Ms., Doctor, whatever applies, and their last name. And in your first paragraph, you're going to state the position you're applying for and where you learned about the opportunity. So it's a brief introduction of who you are. And if someone referred you for that position that you're applying for, so let's say you know someone in the organization, or you connected with someone on LinkedIn and they said, we have a job open you might be interested in, you're going to want to mention that current employee's name, your friend's name, the family member's name, whatever applies in that situation. And you want to include that in the first sentence. Your second or possibly third paragraph really explains why you're interested in the position in the organization, or in general in that field of work, and what your qualifications are. And here's where you can highlight 2 or 3 achievements using specific examples. And these examples can be from your coursework in college, work experience, volunteer experience, anything that you feel like relates to the position or the field that you're now seeking. You want to make it very easy for the reader of your cover letter, this hiring manager, to see how you would be a good fit for their organization. Lastly, in that final paragraph, you're just going to sort of summarize your interest and qualifications. You're going to state your enthusiasm for the position, and you're going to thank them for their time and consideration, and include some contact information on where you can be reached. Here's usually a good place to just include your telephone number, your cell phone number, because at the top of the letter you have your street address. You're going to close with either a sincerely or a best regards or a thank you, and your name. And if you've included your resume, you can mention that as well. And what I recommend for all job seekers is that they may write their cover letter and resume in Word or as a Google Doc, but you're going to want to save it as a PDF. So remember to save these docs as PDFs, including your first and last name, and attach them, whether it's to an email or an application, however the job posting asks for that information. You're going to want to include it as a PDF. And that will keep your document organized in the way that you intended it. So that's my suggestion with regard to cover letters and resumes. And what's helpful to keep in mind is that you might have a boilerplate cover letter or resume, but you're going to take the opportunity for each and every job opening to tailor it to that specific position. So you're going to look to see which of your skills and qualifications best meet the job description that you're applying for, and customize. So at this point, I'm going to take questions and comments. I know sometimes, resume and cover letter information can come at you, from different sources. And sometimes students have gotten some, differing information depending on who the source is. So had anyone heard anything different, or wanted to ask a question about their particular situation? I'd love to be able to help. A resume is I teach first-year students at the University of Connecticut, and we spend a good deal of time working on the first college resume, because as early on as you can in your college experience, develop a resume. It could be very helpful to have one sort of at the ready that you can customize so that you can apply for a part-time job, a work-study position, an internship. Sometimes, it's even asked of you when you're applying for a volunteer opportunity. So to get one that sort of has the basics for, your education, any volunteer experience, any work experience that you've held in the past. And I know that for students sort of just starting out in high school, they might not be able to have content for a full page, and that's okay too. Employers understand that, when you're early on in your career, that you might not have a lot of experience, but, things to think about, if you've had, odd jobs, neighborhood jobs, if you've, been responsible for snow shoveling, lawn maintenance, dog walking, babysitting, all of these positions can be listed on your resume. So it doesn't have to be formal work experience, because not everybody has that. Okay, Michelle, I'm not sure if I'm seeing any other questions in the chat or if anyone else wants to chime in. But do you have any additional questions for me?
No, I think that's it. I guess I will record this. If anyone would like the slides, please email me at mmartin@greenwichlibrary.org, and I will send you the slides from this program. The recording will be on the Greenwich Library YouTube channel probably in a couple of days, and it'll be available for about a week, Lauren?
Yes, that would be terrific, and I will send you the slides now so that you can send them out. And I will certainly look forward to covering all you need to know about preparing for a job interview next month.
Great. All right. And that is March 8th at 7 p.m. We'll be back with Lauren. Lauren, thank you very much. Everyone who attended, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us this
Thank you.
evening.